thing off. So thank you all for coming. I'm going to mute everybody. Hang on. Okay. Okay. Thanks to everybody for coming. This is kind of an experiment. It's the second phase of the work that we did when we started to stream and work with Zoom as a way to get through the coronavirus and COVID-19. And it seemed to work so well. We got a ton of positive feedback from members and participants in this thing. And I spent some time with Dennis and with Marty and with Gerry and others talking a little bit about what we could do to take this to another level. And the concept came up of doing special interest groups. So this is our first experiment in that vein. Gerry Hull, W1VE, has volunteered to be our man in the spotlight for this first session, and he's going to be talking to us about remote operating. Let's see here, we'll switch it over to him, and I'm going to keep everybody muted for right now. And Gerry, why don't you pick it up? Now I have to unmute you. There we go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Let me share my desktop. Everybody seeing it okay, Jim?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So good evening, everybody, and welcome to this experiment in Zoom. I think it's fantastic. It's been doing some great things for the club. We had a really great meeting, and I think this is going to be a pretty interesting medium going forward. So, as many of you know, I've been involved in doing remote operation for quite a number of years now, but I've also, probably for most of my amateur radio career in contesting, been involved in multi-op operating. And as you can see from the background slide here, this is one of the pictures from one of the operations at Andy Bedoni's place, K2LE. And well, we have COVID, and it's not a good situation to put a bunch of older guys in a room to operate radios during this period. But that means we shouldn't give up the ability to be able to do multi-op operations. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is setting up remote operations that are very, very easy. Okay, let me make my slide change. Okay, so why should we want to do this? Well, this weekend is NEQP, which is our premier contest. We like to send out a lot of mobiles. We like to have multi-ops, and we like to be around for the contest. And not only that, we have WPXCW coming up very soon. And because there's no Dayton, there's probably going to be a lot more people involved than would be in the past. And perhaps somebody wants to try multi-op for the first time if you don't have to have people in the house. So, and multi-ops are a blast. If you've never done one, they're a lot of fun. And no matter how long you've been doing it, you get to learn from other people, which is really, really great. We all value our health and safety. The good thing is, and what I'm going to present tonight, is it's a very easy to set up a remote that is effective using free software, and you can get on the radio. And this slide deck is already on the reflector, so you don't have to follow all. I'm going to give you step-by-step instructions here, but you don't have to memorize it. You can use the slide deck in PDF form and follow the instructions to get set up. So I had yep.
One quick thing, as you think about going through this, I'd love to break at some points that you want to break at to ask for questions.
Sure, absolutely.
So whenever you want to do that, just let me know, and I'll unmute the crew.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine, because I think I'm sure there will be questions. So what are you going to learn tonight? How to set up your station to be a remote host for CW and SSB operation. how to set up your computer to be a remote operator. And if you want to be a remote operator, hopefully you can find a host station that you want to operate from. So I had 2 guinea pigs to sort of beta test this before tonight. Guy, V2BWL, and K1KP, our illustrious ex-president, set it up. So they both have this particular kind of remote operating. And towards the end of the session here, hopefully they'll do a live demo here on Zoom so you can see how easy it is. So what's involved? So each end of both the host and the remote are going to need an internet connection. And what kind of connection does that need to be? It doesn't have to be extraordinary. Maybe 2 to 3 megabits per second, DSL, anything like that. Just not satellite. Satellite's a little too much delay, and you run into issues. But if both ends, both the remote operators and the remote station have decent internet, should not be a problem. Then you're going to need a computer with ham automation. And I would say that most of the people in YCCC who are contesters, who are active, have a radio that has CAT computer control, and they use some kind of logging program on their PC that supports controlling the radio and logging. So most of us use N1MM, and that's what we're going to use. That's what I'm sort of going to explain with here. This is a picture of the remote desktop of K1KP, and this has N1MM automation, and you also have some additional automation for antenna control and switching. Now, all the magic about operating really comes from N1MM. You can use your up and down arrows in N1MM to change frequency. You can click on spots. You can send CW using the keyboard or using the macros. So all of that comes for free. So the whole idea is to leverage that automation that's in N1MM and this just remote the desktop and the audio. Once you've done that, you don't have a problem to do SSB or CW. You don't have a tuning knob, but other than that, it's perfectly fine, especially if you're running in a contest or you're SMPing by clicking on links. So how are we going to do that? We're going to use a remote desktop application called AnyDesk, which is free. And we're going to go through the steps to install that. And then we're going to use Skype for two-way audio. And that's another free application. And we'll go through setting that up. So, and I'll just to review, I already said these things. The host needs a decent internet connection. The host will need a PC that has computer logging, such as N1MM. If you have that, you're 99% there. If you have other pieces of automation for rotation or for antenna switching, those are great things. But in general, for something like NEQP, the host is going to be around, and if they need to switch an antenna for you, they can do that. So the remote operator needs a decent internet connection, a headset, and the ability to install Skype and AnyDesk. So this, again, this is what a remote sees. This is AnyDesk. This is a client. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about AnyDesk and how to make it optimized for you as an operator, but we'll get to that. So what's the process? We're going to set up both the Skype and the AnyDesk account. We're going to figure out, and probably the hardest part in this whole process is the audio plumbing. And then you're going to test before the contest, because if you're going to get up and try to set this up an hour or two before any QP or any other contest, you're probably going to run into issues. So that's one of the most important things. So before I continue with this next one, Jim, let's see if there are any major questions so far. Any questions? Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Dennis.
Okay, in regard to the streaming, Jim, has anybody seen the YouTube? Because I have someone that sent me an email that says that they don't see it. The link doesn't go anywhere.
It's working here.
Okay. That's all I needed to know.
Okay, all right. So let's start by setting up, how would you set up Skype? So if you have an existing account on Skype, I want you to disregard that and create a Skype account that's specifically for either being a host or a remote operator, so that you don't interfere with any other anything else that you're doing with Skype. And you download and install Skype on your PC from www.skype.com. And you run the installer, and if you look at this image on the left-hand side, you can. I have one account, Gerry@remote.radio, but I'm going to use another account. If you don't have a Skype account at all, the same options are available. You're just going to create a new account. Microsoft wants you to sign in using your Microsoft account. You don't need to do that at all. So on you create one. There's a create one in the second window there. You want to create an account. And when you go to create account, it's going to ask you for your phone number. You don't want to give them your phone number. You want to use an email address instead. Now, this is the most important step to remember. You need to have an email account. I wouldn't recommend using an email account you already have. I know you already probably have many email accounts, but it's nice to keep this one separate. You can use your regular email account. It's just for verification. So I had another account I created, Skype@remote.radio. You put that in and you say next. And what it's going to do is it's going to send you a verification email. Now, that email can be read on a tablet, on a computer. It doesn't have to be the same one you installed Skype on. It's just a way to get the code that they're going to send you. And if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see my email that I got, and there'll be a code that you have to enter. So essentially, create a new account, put in the code, and we'll go from there. So after verifying the code, you're going to be asked a few questions like, what is your birthday? They want to make sure you're not a little kid. They're going to make you enter one of those funky codes to make sure you're not a computer. But essentially, you'll get connected. And it'll ask you if you want to import contacts or not. It'll do that from your email. All that's not important because you're going to be connecting either to a host or to a remote op, so you don't really need to do any of that. Of course, the most important thing is to test your audio. And as the remote operator, this is pretty straightforward. You're going to plug a headset into your computer, your audio sound, your sound card in your computer, a headset with a microphone if you're going to do sideband, and just a pair of headphones if you're going to do CW. You only need one-way audio. I must stress that it should be a headset if you're using a microphone, because the background noise is going to kill you if you're trying to do sideband. In the next slide, I'll talk about what we want to do for the host, because that's much more involved. But you should test the microphone and make sure when you speak, you see your microphone, and when you play through the speakers, you have sound. And once you test your audio, on the right here, you'll see that you get the Skype window, and in the Skype window, that's how you contact other people. And for example, K1KP's Skype name is K1KP. So if you type that, he then shows in the Skype directory below. And if we wanted to connect to him, you double click on that, and it would bring up the window where you can call on Skype. And we'll talk about it a little bit more later. So there are some golden rules with audio, and they can be confusing when you're looking at your computer and when you're talking about your radio. So the line out or speaker out on the radio, so however you have output on your radio, it goes to the line in or mic in on the computer. So the mic on the computer goes to the speaker on the radio, and the line out or speaker out on the computer goes to the line in or mic in on the radio. So you have to have appropriate cabling and connectors to make that happen. So if your radio has a built-in sound card, like an IC7300, a K3, an FT101D, a lot of the other, some of the other ICOM radios, they all have built-in sound cards. So you just have to figure out through the menus how to get the line in and line out of the sound card working, and use those. Critically important, if you don't have a line in or out on the computer, you'll need isolation transformers. And these are typically, 8 ohm to a few thousand ohm transformers. Yes, you can order them from China and they'll be here in a few weeks. But if you really want one quickly and you don't have one, they're easy to find at auto parts stores. A lot of people install aftermarket amplifiers in their cars, and they use these transformers to transform the speaker level audio into line ins for these amplifiers. So they typically either have leads for the 8 ohm side and the phono plugs for the others, for the high impedance side, or they have 3.5 millimeter jacks in and out. There are a bunch of different ones. So you can run to your local auto parts store and find those, and they work very, very well. The critical factor in getting the audio to work correctly is not having the levels too high. Because if you're going from a speaker out on your computer into a mic input on your radio, you want to keep the levels not hot at all, just enough to modulate the radio correctly. Okay. So again, it is critical that you test your audio to have the right levels in Skype. And the best way to do this is connect to your PAL or connect to yourself from another computer. And when you're testing your audio, you got to choose the right device, right? So in some radios with built-in sound cards, this will show up as a USB device. On some radios, it shows up as the radio type, like a ICOM has. Some of their drivers have that. But a lot of times it'll just say USB device. And it can be confusing if you have multiple USB sound cards, because they'll show up as USB and USB 2 and etc. So the sound applet in Windows has level meters on it, and that's one of the good ways to find that. But this will probably take the most amount of time to get this configured right. But once you have it configured right, you'll be in very good shape. So as a host, there's some additional Skype options that you want to do. So when you're fully installed Skype and you have the screen where you can look at contacts, there's the 3 ... arrows in the upper right hand in the upper right hand corner. And that's where you get to settings. If you go to settings, there are 2 settings that we find that are important. Audio and video is where you can adjust what your sound card is and what the levels are. And the other one is the calling settings. And as a host, you want people to be able to call you. I gotta look to the side here because my camera's hiding the screen. So you want caller ID disabled. You don't want to mess with call forwarding. Show the call window so that if you're in front of the desk, you can see that somebody's calling you. Otherwise, it's not that important. You might want it to ring just so you know that something's happening. The next thing that's very important is you go to the advanced settings, and you want to answer incoming calls automatically, so that when an operator calls in, that you immediately get connected to the radio audio, and they're ready to operate as soon as they connect. And how do you do this and prevent people who are not authorized from getting into your station? Well, you only authorize when you first talk to somebody on Skype. You have to authorize them to as a friend. And so, of course, for this particular Skype account, you only want to authorize those people that are going to operate your station. So that will restrict it to those people who you've authorized to do so. So you can walk away from the station, and if somebody comes and connects, they'll be connected to the radio and be able to communicate. So before I go on to AnyDesk, let's open it up. Any questions about Skype?
So I had some observations, some things to add there, Gerry.
Okay.
You can also get very inexpensive audio isolation transformers from Amazon. This is a little one that has a 3.5 millimeter jack in and out stereo, and that'll do the job for the transformers.
Yep. That's where I got mine. I happen to know that you can get them at auto parts stores too. So that's why I meant.
The other observation is that most folks in this audience have probably already hooked up N1MM as a voice keyer. And if they've done that, they've got at least half the audio connection working. They've got the PC out to the radio in, and they probably already got that figured out.
Excellent. Well, yeah, as I say, to me, that's the most complex part. The rest of it here is just pretty much straightforward. But any questions about Skype? I'm sure a lot of people have played with it at some point in life.
Can you post the line output converter an Amazon link after the meeting?
Can't hear the person who was ever talking.
Can you post the link to the Amazon line output converter after?
Oh,
that?
yeah, we'll do that. Yep. All right.
Gerry,
Yes.
the type of headset that you're using, that's a USB headset, right?
Doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. It just has to have audio in and out. Any 3.5 millimeter, a computer headset from Walmart will work just fine.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, doesn't matter. I mean, I use my Heil in the sound card. That works too. Any other question?
You have to wait a spell.
Okay.
I'll give you some, what's left over, but you have to wait.
Okay. So let's talk about AnyDesk. So a lot of you have maybe used remote desktop or VNC or TeamViewer. There are a lot of applications that can do remote desktop. The reason you mute audio, Jim? Is it has features that are very advantageous when you're trying to host a remote operation for amateur radio. One of its great advantages is that many people can connect to the same host at the same time. And so if, for example, Tony is hosting at K1KP and he has a new operator and the operator's not quite sure how to do some feature, Tony can walk over to his computer and show him while he's connected to the station. Or you can have a session where you host 2 or 3 operators and they all connect to your machine and you show them all at the same time how to make this work. So it's very advantageous for that. It also has a neat feature called an alias, which I'll talk about, which makes it very easy to remember how to connect to stations. So the first thing that you're going to do is download AnyDesk from anydesk.com. And I show a picture of the link there. There's a free download. This is a free for life, never going to beg you to upgrade to a commercial version. The guys who wrote AnyDesk actually were members of Microsoft working on TeamViewer, and they left and started this company, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, it's never gonna bug you. So when you download it and you run it on your computer, it's going to instantly come up. It doesn't install itself. You can use AnyDesk without installing it. But there are 3 important things you need to look at, especially as the host operator. You want to install AnyDesk. Down there at the bottom on the left-hand side of the page, there's the install AnyDesk link. The other thing is you're going to want to set a password for unattended access. And you're going to want to set an alias. Now I have on this particular machine, I have W1VE Mac PC at AD, that's called an alias. Normally when you connect to AnyDesk, it's a 9-digit number that is forgettable and you'll never remember it. So you want to use the alias. So when you go to install, it's going to show you that middle window there where you're going to tell it where it's going to install. And it will install AnyDesk permanently on your machine. Then it's going to ask you, there's going to present a window, welcome to AnyDesk, and ask you to set a password. And if you're going to allow other people to connect to your machine, you most definitely want to set a password. So when you go to set a password, it's going to bring up a screen called security. So in security, you want to set to always show incoming or station requests. So if you happen to be on your station or the computer where you're going to operating your radio and somebody wants to connect on AnyDesk, you'll get a warning that somebody's about to connect. For unattended access, you want to you check the box enable for unattended access, and you set a password. And up to you what kind of level of security you want in your password. So go ahead and set it. The other thing for operating is that AnyDesk can send audio in one direction. So it can send your computer audio over AnyDesk. We don't want to do that in this situation because then you'll have two channels of audio, one coming from AnyDesk and one coming from Skype. So even though I have it checked here, I would recommend unchecking hear my computer sound. And there is a spot in AnyDesk where you can turn that on and off dynamically. But as a standard, I would recommend that you don't send sound through AnyDesk. The next thing, and then once you've done the security, you're ready to connect. That's the middle window. You're all set. The last window there shows my alias. When you install AnyDesk for the first time, it's not going to have an alias set, but when you're in settings, it will allow you to enter an alias. There are commercial versions of AnyDesk that allow you to change your alias multiple times, but don't flub it up, because when you enter it, you only get one chance with the free version. You set your alias, that is it, and that will be your alias. So to connect to another station on AnyDesk, well, we're going to show the three right here as an example. So on Skype, if I wanted to connect to Tony K1KP, I'd double click when I search for him, I'll double click on Tony, and up comes the Skype chat screen for Tony. When you first connect, you have to become his friend if you're not his friend, and you type him a message at the bottom and press enter, say like, hi Tony, I'm trying to connect. And for the first time, he has to authorize you. He has to authorize you as a person who's allowed to connect to him on Skype. Once he's done that, if he's set up his host properly, you click the phone icon there. It will ask you if you want to make a Skype call or a phone call, and you say, I want to make a Skype call, and it will connect and you'll hear the station audio. And we're going to demo this in a little bit, so you'll hear it all. So there's your audio. Now you want to be able to connect to his remote desktop over AnyDesk and control the station. So Tony happened to set an alias, which I recommend, is @AD. So your alias is just to be everything before the @ sign, but he's K1KP@AD. So you click connect, and it will connect. It'll ask you for his password, which he will share with you. And if you're an operator, and his remote desktop will appear. Your mouse and keyboard work just fine. I'm going to go back a few slides to can we do it here? No, I want to go back a few slides and show you. We have a big slide of this slide. Oh, this one. This is Tony's station on AnyDesk. And you'll see at the top left-hand corner, we have K1KP@AD. If Tony has more than one monitor, you see this one here, the one is for monitor 1. All the monitors in an AnyDesk session will show up. So you can be connected to monitor 1, monitor 2, etc. You just click on each one and you will see each of the monitors. This icon here, the icon there's a keyboard icon, and there's an icon that looks like a PC. If you click that, it allows you to stretch or shrink the size of the screen. So if you're running on a small monitor and he shows up small, you click that and it'll zoom his desktop to the size of your window. It'll zoom it to the size of the window. So you can make it comfortable, very comfortable to see everything. So your keyboard's live, your mouse is live. The host has ultimate control. So if the host moves his mouse, your mouse freezes and he gets control. So if there's some need for the host to take over, you can do that. So let's go back to where we were here. So some hits and kinks. When you're connected on Skype, the Skype will suppress the other end's audio if noise is heard in the microphone. So if you're going to be a CW op and listen to CW, the remote station should mute their mic on Skype. It'll sound terrible. The volume of the CW will go up and down if there's any background noise in your station. So you want to mute your microphone if you're going to CW. So CW keying is via N1MM keyboard and macros. There's no mouse operation. No paddle operation. That can be done, but that's something beyond the topic of what I'm discussing. But all of that is possible, but you can make perfect QSOs using the N1MM macros and CW keying from N1MM or any other program. We just happen to be doing it with N1MM here. So SSB keying is via Vox. So as you talk into your microphone on the remote end, that's going to trip the Vox on the host's end, and away you go transmitting. So especially if you're using transformer isolation and line, and speaker level outputs, you really want to watch the drive because it's very easy to distort in Skype. So you want to test that live on the air. Have somebody make a QSO and find out what the audio level is like. But I used this solution for almost a year at VY1AAA, and it worked very well. So it definitely does work. It works very well. So, Marty, are you ready?
A small.
Roger. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm gonna stop sharing, and you got the floor, pal.
Okay. So, do you want to set up what I'm
share
going to do as I push buttons?
You want to share the desktop?
Yeah,
So we can
yeah. I didn't know if you want. Do you want to paint a picture of what's going on here?
Yeah. So Marty is gonna
Can you see the right screen?
I see AnyDesk. Yep.
Cool. You can keep talking.
Okay. So Marty is gonna connect to K1 KP on AnyDesk, and he's connected. And as you see, it scales, so it's going full screen. And then he's gonna. So now he has control of the station, and now he's gonna connect on Skype audio. So do you have some way of sharing the audio?
Yeah. Can you guys hear the audio?
Un abrazo, ha sido un placer haberlo tenido por acá por el CCH y espero que volvamos a...
Well, Marty's turning the meeting by he's back down there.
And see what the situation is. And don't kiss your hands. And just listen to what they're saying. And you may, if you play it cool, you may wind up coming out way ahead of everything. Okay?
Yeah, they don't work that way, Charlie. I'm telling you, they're waiting for you to go. And
Not exactly the content I was looking for.
Call Steve Field if you want.
So, you want phone or you want code?
Well, do phone and call Steve Field.
Is the frequency in use? Oops, I should turn on the microphone, so I'm going to unmute myself. And is the frequency in use? November 1 Charlie. CQ40, hello CQ40, CQ40 meters. This is November 1 Charlie, and 1C. November 1 Charlie, CQ40, CQ40, CQ40 meters. November 1 Charlie, November 1 Charlie. And this is the magic part where somebody comes back to you. CQ40 meters, CQ anybody anywhere, looking to make a remote QSO. November 1 Charlie, and 1C. November 1 Charlie, anybody anywhere, QRZ. Hi there. VE3 Delta Zulu Golf. You're 5 and 9 here in Massachusetts. My name is Marty. Mike Alpha Radio Tango Yankee.
Yeah, my name is Dave. You're 5-9 here in Sudbury, Northern Ontario.
Thanks, Dave. You got a big signal here, just north of Boston, Massachusetts. Thanks so much for coming back to me. Okay. All right, 73. Thank you. That's all it is.
Yep. So yeah, let me share back again, Marty. Actually, we can stay in the conference. I know Tom is here, K1KI. This is a great way to do remote. It's easy to set up, and we really want people to be on for NEQP. And Tom, if you're here and you wanna give a little spiel or about who might be on or what's going on for NEQP, take a moment.
Hello. Is my audio on?
It is. It's not very loud.
Is that working now?
Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. The sad part about remote is my internet connection is via satellite. So at this point, no remote for me, unless you can tell me what kind of bandwidth is actually required for an hour of contest time.
No, I probably can, but the issue with satellite with internet, we could test it, Tom. I could test it with you, but there's a lot of compression algorithms, and they continuous streams of stuff.
Okay. Well, I also could choose to use a AT&T hotspot, but that's not a cheaper way to go either. So anyhow, yeah. I hope everybody on here will be active this weekend. We got more than 100 people now saying that they'll be on the air. I've got all but 12, I think, counties covered at this point from home stations. A couple of people in northern New England, northern New Hampshire, northern Maine talking about a couple of operations mobile, but I'm not really encouraging mobile this year since most of us really shouldn't be out there on the streets. So, but it looks like we're gonna have a lot of home stations. If you were on last weekend, you know that the Florida QSO Party folks did a really good job of getting activity on. I think they had about twice as many logs as they did the year before, even after one day. So there's a lot of home stations, and there should be a lot of activity this weekend. So hope to hear you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. So I'm opening the floor to questions. Any questions about how you might do this? Are there any people who would be interested in being a remote station? I know Tony is looking for somebody. Of course, Guy up in southern Quebec is getting his station working remote. Well, he's got it working. But of course, he's not in New England, but it might be fun to work all the New England stations from his QTH. But if you want to speak up, because they're looking for ops.
N1, Roger.
Yeah, hi, Charlie.
How are you, Jerry?
Good.
Great job. We're actively looking at solutions for remoting from here, hosting. And can you spend a minute and give me a comparison between K3s with remote rigs, ICOMs or VA2 ISQ software, Win4 ICOM, and a typical AnyDesk Skype implementation, and tell us the pros and cons of those three?
Oh, okay. Sure. That's a little bit beyond what I was going to do here, but of course, a hardware solution gives you, lifelike in the shack performance. So a K30 with an RRC gives you pretty much, in all the stations I've used it at, it's just like being there. So having a knob and having hardware is excellent. We also have, actually at K1IR, we now have a ICOM 7610 that's remoted, that uses the ICOM BA1 software. Haven't had a lot of time to play with it, but Marty gave me an interesting demo, and that's, if you have enough bandwidth, it's great. I mean, you get the full spectrum scope, you get essentially the radio on screen, so full on screen performance. There is a ICOM remote radio knob, so at least you can have a knob for tuning. But as a contester, as you know, how many knobs you actually play with during a contest. So as long as you've got RIT and VFO control and things of that nature, it's fine. I've not used the VA2 software for ICOM. I tend to find the vendor solutions to be a bit complex to get working. Even though once you get them working, they work really well. They tend to be a bit obtuse about how you make them work. The solution I presented tonight works, right? So if you're not ready to have some full solution with all kinds of bells and whistles, the TeamViewer Skype combination works. K1TTT has his full SO2R station available via AnyDesk Skype, and has for a long time. And lots of guys use it, and they're very satisfied with it. So it can and will work. It doesn't have nearly as good audio quality as a RRC solution, but it costs nothing, and it's very easy to set up. So if you want to try, I hope are you going to do a remote for any QP, Charlie? If you muted your mic, Charlie. Okay. So I was just going to ask him, if you're trying to do a remote for this weekend, don't try to do anything complex. You could do this TeamViewer Skype remote, and it will work, and it'll take you, a few hours to set up, but it definitely will work. Anybody else with questions? Questions or comments?
This is Dave, KW1DX. I was just wondering, yes. Do you have any knowledge of how to do antenna selecting and rotor control?
Sure. So what kind of rotor do you have?
It's a Yaesu, what is it, G800?
And that doesn't have a built-in serial port, correct?
No.
Okay, so that's a little bit difficult to do right out of the box. If you have any rotor controller with RS-232 or USB, there are automation solutions that are pretty much available free. N1MM has built-in rotor control. There are other applications that are quite interesting that allow rotor control, but you have to have some level of automation. The kits the kits to make a rotor. Well, there's an Arduino project you can do to make a rotor controller, but there are kits you can buy. And I'll follow up on the reflector with a list of applications, but it's very inexpensive to control your rotor from your computer. And once you can control it from your computer using this solution, you can make it remotable. As far as antenna switching, there are lots and lots of ham radio commercial solutions that do that, but they're all pretty expensive. There are many antenna switches. All the antenna switches that are remote, that have relays in them that are controllable, like a 6-pack or anything like that, are just DC relays. So what a lot of guys have been doing is getting there, and I can also send a list on the reflector. What a lot of guys are doing is getting these IP relay boards. There are a lot of, you can get a 16-channel IP relay board for about $45, and that's 16 DP/DT relays with a web server in it. So you connect that, and away you go. You can remotely control your antenna relays, and you just have to label it for what your antenna switching is. So that's a simple solution. It can get much more sophisticated depending on what you want to do.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or comments?
What do you do? Ed, thank you. W1E, W1ZZ, were you trying to make a comment? You're on mute. I can unmute you. There.
Oh, Tom wants to speak, but he's muted. N1MM.
Hang on. There we go. Ed, go ahead.
Okay, I have a question. When Marty was running the frequency up and down, was it by a mouse, and was it on the band map, or was it on the frequency setting within N1MM where you type in and enter?
Yeah, Tom wants in too, so yeah. Marty's muted, but I would either guess you were doing up-down keys, Marty?
I can talk now.
Yes.
Oh, this is cool. I like this power. I was using the up and down arrows at M1MM. It's kind of a small steps. So sometimes I click around in the band map, but especially on radios that can support if you have like an ICOM 7300 or 7610 or 7851 or any of the radios that can do spectrum over the USB connection.
Yeah,
it's very handy in M1MM because you can click on the signals and you do a lot less.
Right. I tested earlier with Tony K1KP.
Yep.
Remotely with the setup I have here.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me that if you have a mouse, you can run the wheel within the entry key, the entry part of M1MM, where you type the call sign in or the frequency or whatever. You put your cursor there, and you can run your key, your mouse mouse in there, and it'll run the frequency up and down on the radio.
I think Jerry's muted and trying to talk.
Jerry, unmute yourself.
I just unmuted. I've unmuted everybody. There's no manager muting going on right now.
Okay, so go ahead, Tom. Tom.
Okay. If you're going to do this with N1MM, you're going to want to learn some commands. You're going to want to learn what you were just told, which is to use the mouse wheel to tune. You can also hold down the control key and the alt key and tune faster. You can type frequencies into the entry window call sign text box, and you don't have to put the whole frequency in. You can put in 0.5 for 5 kilohertz up from the bottom of the band, 175 for 7175 if you're on 40. Furthermore, you can turn your filters wide and narrow. You can do a whole bunch of things that you ought to look through the documentation. If you're used to using your radio knobs to do these things, you want to find out what things can you do remotely through the interface, through the program keyboard and mouse.
Yeah, I used the mouse wheel this afternoon to turn Tony's radio up and down the band. And I thought that was very useful. So you don't have a knob on the radio, but if you have a mouse wheel and you put the mouse within the entry box, you can run the frequencies up and down on M1MM on the radio.
And you can set what the increment is that you're moving with each move of the mouse wheel or the up and down arrow. You also want to learn the keyboard commands for jumping between spots and that sort of thing, which would be a lot quicker than using the mouse.
I've done a lot of remote operating, and I find that trying to tune, whether it's a remote rig or any other section, is very difficult and tedious. It's much easier to click on spots or just sit there and run.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Well, I want to thank the club and Jim for hosting this session in Zoom, and I hopefully it was informative and productive. And some of you guys who may not have been getting on for any QP or were going to go to a multi-op can put something together and get on, and it should be a blast. Hope to see you on the air this weekend.
Gerry, if people have questions, can they contact you?
Sure, and send me an email, Gerry@W1VE.com.
Okay, I think we should thank everybody for coming. It was a good hour, and we'll do this again. I think what I'd love is for you to give us feedback, maybe by email, or on two things. One is what you liked or didn't like about this session, and also any ideas for future topics that we might address in a session like this.
I can put a plug in for my Zoom session tomorrow at 3 p.m.
Elliot, you had a question. He's muted. W1MJ. Is he still here? I don't see him.
Says he can't unmute.
Oh.
Okay,
Jim?
I just unmuted him.
Oh, now you can hear me?
Go ahead, Elliot.
Yeah, Jim, I think you unmuted me. You said you unmuted everybody, but I didn't want to get like some noise from around the house, so I muted myself, and I couldn't unmute myself again. So Jim, I was just starting to send you email when you asked for feedback, but that's it. That's my feedback. So I have a question for Bully. I thought his name was Marty. So I told Tony I'm interested in his offer to operate remotely K1KP. So I came over here after another meeting and I saw the demo, but that echo was like crazy. Is that normal voice remote operation?
No, remember that we have multiple audio paths. I think Tony was in Zoom and no, and that's the other reason to have a headset. You don't want to, you got to make sure, one of the things you should make sure is if you're in sideband that the host's radio doesn't have monitor turned on, because that'll definitely generate echo and feedback. But if you get the levels right, no, you won't have any at all and it'll sound beautiful.
Yeah, I did at the last New England convention, I did operate a remote station. I think the Nashville Club had, and it sounded like pretty much normal sideband operation. So yeah, I just was really freaking out there with with Marty's demo. Okay, well, I'll get in touch with Tony between now and the weekend and work out the details, but glad to know it doesn't have to sound like that. Thank you.
Sounds great.
Okay, Tom, you wanted to talk about your session tomorrow. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to have a workshop, which means you're going to install something and try it. We have a 32 user license for Hamachi Creative VPN, and we're going to have people come in and install Hamachi and then connect to the network and start up networking on N1MM. So if you're interested in that, go to the bio for N1MM, and there's a...
Oh, it's okay. Go ahead.
Where you can register.
Go ahead.
Okay, great. What time did you say that was, Tom?
3 p.m. Eastern time.
3 p.m. Eastern, and they can get the link to the Zoom on your site?
On the groups.io server.
Okay. Okay, great. All right. I think we can wrap it up. Thanks, everybody. Let me just check. Marty, can you see how many people did we have on the live stream on YouTube? It's about 10 or 12. I think we had 10 or 12 max.
And how many here?
And we hit a peak here on the Zoom of about 45 attendees.
Great.
Just so everybody knows. Okay, great. Everybody, thank you so much. I'm gonna stop the recording right now. And actually, anybody who'd like to stay longer and talk, no problem.
Hey, yep, we're here.
So long, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks,
guys.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks. Another great job, you guys.
Yeah, great job, Jerry. I've read a lot about this. This is nice, simple, to the point, and a really, really good solution. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry.
How's the beach, Les?
Thank you, Jerry.
It was awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. Yeah, it was great.
Thank you, Jerry. Great solution.
Yeah, and again, the PDF is on the files on the reflector, and I think it got sent to the reflector. The link got sent to the reflector, so it's all there if you want to go through the steps.
I got some feedback from IK1HJS, who watched us on YouTube. Said very interesting, good work. Meetings like that will help a lot of people, and it helped me too.
Ah, awesome. Very nice. Very nice. So how many other inquiries you get, Tony? Anybody else that, you know?
Nobody yet, but maybe some people from tonight will give me an email or something.
Yes, is Guy V2BWL still here? I don't know. I don't see him, I guess. I guess he left. Well, maybe he's on the other.
He is, his chair is empty.
His chair is empty. Oh, he stepped away from the chair. And we have Mr. Benoni, K2LE. How are you?
Hi.
Good.
Great. Jerry, what is this remote thing?
We
Jerry,
now have.
Tell them how long we have been operating K2LE remote.
Yeah, I can't count the number of years now. 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
4 years, ever since we got the high-speed internet in Vermont.
Yes.
We have been operating nothing but remote.
Nothing but remote, pretty much. We now have 2 K3s remoted, so we can potentially do multi-2 remote, which is fun. With a bunch of DSL connections, so you can do it with not the best internet. I do want to. I'll probably take Tom up and do a test with him on the satellite, but I don't know how well it'll work.
Jerry, I have a question.
Yeah. Who was that? Somebody had a question?
How about me? Can you guys hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Ken.
Okay, great. The built-in laptop wasn't working. I had put a headset on. So interesting. I just had a comment back in January 2014 when we were supporting Mike N1IW. He was tied up, in a rehab facility. He actually worked FT5ZM from his hospital bed using my station. I used TeamViewer and Skype.
Yep.
I guess it's funny. I don't understand why the TeamViewer, maybe you have some insight into this, why TeamViewer or Skype or AnyDesk, require the Skype application. Why can't you just do the audio? I can remember spending hours trying to get the audio to run in.
Yes, there's one reason. There's one good reason, and it's because remote desktop protocol, which is kind of the underlying technology that allows remote to work, does not natively support two-way audio. It only supports the desk. It essentially makes the desktop audio of the remote system look as if it's on the local PC, but it doesn't support the mic. There are very expensive applications. There's something called remote two-way. There's a remote desktop audio for remote desktop. It'll work with TeamViewer or either one, but it's $100 a copy. So this is a much easier. Even though you have to run 2 applications to make it happen, it just works. I mean, it's pretty flawless.
Pretty cool.
Marty's operated K1TTT. A lot of the guys that operate K1TTT, they use it every day, and it's just Skype and TeamViewer. There is a much higher quality audio solution if you're going to do remote a lot. There's the gamers out in the world like to chat with each other real time while they're doing games. And there's a free server called the client is called Mumble, and the server is called Murmur.
K1TTT is changing to that.
Yes, K1T. I recommended him and try it, and he likes it. It's very high quality. It's 24 kilobit. 24 bit sound, and it has very low latency. So for CW and stuff like that, it's very. Have lots and lots of users on it. It's not that hard to set up, but it was beyond the scope of what we're doing here. But it's certainly a better solution than Skype. But again, it's like Skype. You have to run another application along with controlling the desktop.
Is there any particular applications on top that you try to cut down so that it doesn't take up too much CPU, which would then cause latency?
Well, no. The only thing, if you're just running normal ham software on your desktop, I wouldn't see there being any issue. I mean, N1MM doesn't take a lot of CPU, and sometimes if you've got the RBN coming in with thousands and thousands of spots per second, sometimes it has some issues. But that's only if it's not a fast computer. But any modern computer, I don't see any major issues with that.
Okay.
Gerry, I'm gonna check out.
Okay.
Gerry.
Thanks, Tony.
All righty. Thanks, Gerry. Did a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for your help.
But I think the last question I had was, I'm looking to upgrade my radio. Any suggestions on certain radios that are good for setting up a remote station better than others?
The best bang for the buck with a small budget is, from my opinion, is the IC 7300. Because it has a built-in sound card, it has a built-in cat control, there's one USB cable to connect, and it just works.
How about the software-defined radios? Are they?
Well, they're all good. I mean, they're all pretty good. It depends what level of control, right? It's from a remote perspective, you're looking at automation. What can you control in the SDR, right? So, and if you want to remote the pan adapter, it gets more complicated.
Okay, thanks.
But like the 7610, or I don't know, is Marty still here? No, he left. A bunch of the ICOM radios, the ICOM remote software allows you to have the full, pan adapter and all that stuff. So. Any other comments, questions? While we got the video open. Oh,
have a good evening, gentlemen. We will
right.
see you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
Good night,
we'll call
Dennis.
it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks again, Gerry.
Guys.
Good night, all. We're shutting it down. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
All right, thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.